Hi everyone. In this video, we'll talk about lists in Python, how to create lists and what are lists. So let's start off by understanding what is a list. So basically, lists are written as comma separated values. That means when you have a lot of values and you want to store it in a variable, you would use a list. Now, if you've done any other programming language, maybe like C or maybe Java, then you can relate to lists because they are similar to arrays in C. So if like arrays, what do we do in arrays? We have a group of variables, isn't it? And they are separated by comma and they are written in square brackets. So similarly here we have a list, which is a comma separated list of values. Okay, so let's see an example and that will help you understand it better. So lists, firstly, let's suppose I create a list of numbers. It can be any data type. You can have a list of numbers, you can have a list of names, you can have a list of characters, alphabets, any list. So let's say we have a list, we want to create a list, so we will say s is equal to s or any other variable you can take and put the values in square brackets. So let's say 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma 4 comma 5 and close the square bracket, and that's it. So you have just created a list. Now if you want to print this list, you would just type the name of the list, which is s, and press enter. So it will give you all the elements of the list. Now if you want to find out the length of the list, that means how many elements are there in the list, so there is a function called len. Okay, and it is an inbuilt function provided to us by Python. So within this function you will type the name of the variable and it tells you that there are 5 elements in the lists. Okay, similarly, let's suppose we create a list of names, so we can say names is equal to, and within the square bracket, as I told in my previous video, that strings can be put in single quotes or in double quotes. So let's suppose we put some names, AAA, and I'm just putting some names randomly, and okay, so we have 3 names here. Okay, now if I want to print these names, I'll just type the list, I'll type the name of the list and it gives me all the names. And if I want to find out the length of this list, which is called names, in that case we will use again the length function. So there are 3 names in the list. Okay, so this is similar to arrays, somewhat similar to arrays in C or Java or C++. Okay, now in my previous video on strings, I told you the concept of slicing and indexing. Okay, so if those of you who cannot understand what slicing is can see that video. For others, okay, so otherwise we can start here. So let's suppose I want the element at a particular index. So as you know, index always starts from 0. Let's suppose I want from the names list, I want the second name. So in that case, I would write the name of the list, which is names, and within the square bracket, the second name if you want. So you will write 1. Okay, so this gives you CCC. See, this is 0, 1, and 2. Okay, so indexing always starts from 0. So this is 0, 1, 2. So it gives you CCC, which is the second name. Okay, similarly, let's suppose this S list and I want the 4th element of this list. So 4th element would actually be the 3rd position, 3rd index, 0, 1, 2, 3. So we would write S and 0. So it gives me the, sorry, S, not 0, S and 3. So it gives the 4th element of the list. Okay, similarly, let's suppose you want the last element of the list to be printed and you've forgotten the length. You do not really remember the length of the list. It is a very long list. So again, it was covered in strings, so I'll just be repeating it. So in case you want the last element, it is always the last index from the right hand side is always -1. So what we can do is we can write S and we can write -1. So it gives you the rightmost element. So S -1 will give us 5, which happens to be the last element. Similarly, we can say names, and here if we say -1, it gives us what? The last name, which is DDD. Okay, so this is what indexing is about. Okay, and let's suppose we want a few elements from the list. Okay, we have a list of numbers called S. Okay, so I want a few elements from this list. So in that case, what we can do is, let's suppose I want the elements from the second position, and we write 2:5. So what all elements will it give? It will give me elements which are from the second position, inclusive of second, but excluding 5. That means second, third, and fourth element from this list. So that means the second element, 0, 1. So this is my second element. because the indexing starts from 0. So 0, 1. So we have said 2 colon 5. So including the second element. So this is 3, 4 and 5. That means 2, 3 and 4. These three indexes will be given. So when you write 2 colon 5, it means that start from the second position, which is inclusive, and exclude the fifth position. That means the elements from 2, 3 and 4th, or at 2, 3 and 4th position. So this is known as slicings. Okay. And let's suppose as we did it in index. So if we say, let's suppose S, and then we say colon, and then we say 2. So what do you think this will give us? So this will give us elements starting from first position. It will give us the elements. That means first element and second element will be given. So that means 1 and 2. So this is 0 position, this is 1 position. So 2 is not inclusive, 2 is excluding. So when you write like this, it gives us from the first position till the like 2 elements from the first position. Okay. So this is the concept of slicing. Now let's suppose we want to let's suppose concatenate a few elements to this list. Okay. So we already have a list, and the length of this list, let me print it again, is 5. Okay. So when I say S plus, and we add, let's suppose, two more numbers here. So this is concatenation. That means we can join a few elements to the list using the plus operator. Now, after concatenation, if you see the length of the list, it is still 5. That means it is a simple concatenation. It has not really appended the elements to the list. So if you want to append the elements, then you would use a function called append. So S dot app, and you can press control spacebar. It gives you a list of all the functions which are there, which you can use. So let's choose append, and here in the append function you can add the elements one at a time. Okay, so let's add 45 and press enter. Now we will print this. So you see the element has been appended, and when we see the length of this list, now it has changed to 6. So similarly, there are many other functions which we'll explore later. Okay, now another concept which we'll talk about is that strings can be changed. That means they are mutable, unlike strings which are immutable. Okay, so here, just to show this concept, what do we mean by mutable? So let's try to change one element of the list. So we have this list S in which the last element is 45, and we want to change this element to 6. Okay, so what is the position of this last element? Starting from 0, so this is 6th position, right? So we will, sorry, this is 5th position. So we'll say S5 is equal to 6. Okay, and now when you print the list, so you see it has changed that value. Instead of 45, we have now 6. So that means lists are mutable. Okay, that means they can be changed. And if you want to change a few elements altogether, okay, so let's do that. S2 colon, let's say 4. Okay, so here is equal to, then we'll say S 2 colon 4 is equal to, here we can write 0, 1 and 2. Okay, so let me change it to 9 comma 16. Okay, now when we print S, so you see the second position, instead of 3 we have 9, and the third position, instead of 4 we have 16. So I can change a few elements together. I don't need to change them individually. So you can use the concept of slicing here to change the elements. Okay, and okay, another thing, if you want to remove some of the elements from the list, so how do we remove the elements from the list? So for that, what we can do is let's suppose we want to remove these elements only. S2 colon 4 is equal to, you just put square brackets here. Okay, so when you put square bracket here, and now when you print it, so see the second and third element is removed from the list. And if you want to remove the list altogether, that means all the elements of the list, then you would use this concept. You would give this notation, and you will put empty square brackets here, and you press enter, and now we have an empty list. And if you want to see the length of this list, so it is 0. Okay, so this is the just simply, the basics of the list. Just developing an understanding of the list. And here in this video, just one more point which I want to reiterate is we can do nesting of the list. Now, what do we mean by nesting? So basically, nesting of lists. Okay, so let me write it as a comment, and let us put a hash symbol here. So nesting of lists. Okay, so what is nesting of lists? Nesting means having one list within another. So let's suppose I have a list, and here we have x is equal to, and let's put a, b. Oh, okay, let's write it again. X is equal to a comma b comma c. Okay, and we have another list of numbers. So let's say n is equal to 1 comma 2 comma 3. So we have these two lists, and I have another list. Let's call it uh, join. Join is equal to, and you write x comma n. Okay, so now when you print join, it would print both the lists. Okay, now when I use the concept of indexing here, and I say join, join, and we say 0, so what should it print? It'll print the first list, that means the entire first list. So this is 0 index, this is 1 index. So when I say join 1, it prints 1 2 3. Now let's suppose I want this name, second character. Okay, so how do we do that? We will say join, and we will say 0, and then we will say 1. So this is somewhat similar to 2D arrays or matrix in C or in C language or any other programming language if you've done it. So when you print it, it prints B. Okay, so this is just giving you a glimpse or just scratching the surfaces of lists. There's much more, but this was an introduction to the lists. I hope you like the video, and please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching.